Don in London, hello. My videos all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, a recovering alcoholic. So that's my substance. My behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places, things, needing or wanting or desiring or absolutely craving to be with the right people in the right place, doing the right things. And I was sharing with a friend outside a meeting recently. He said, "You're quite old, did you ever get married?" I said, "No, it was always the right girl in the right place with the wrong bloke, or the wrong man." That was me, because I didn't know who I was. Had no sense of self really, other than what I could measure, and the hard measure in my life was always material possessions and stuff like that, and I was adequately okay and on track in that department. But in the end, in order to get self-worth, or feel like I had self-worth, I used all the wrong measures, and that was how I looked, how I showed up, how I could be with other people, convivial, joyful, amicable, life and soul of the party sometimes, and at work harder always, I felt, than anybody else. Didn't mean I worked smarter, or I would have realised what my ailments were. So from a very early time in my life, alcohol was a feature, because that first drink did some damage. I didn't realise it. I thought it was doing me good, because extraordinarily I felt better for a drink. It changed the way I felt. So my emotions were impacted by alcohol, and all my life, for a long, long time. So drink got the better of me, but also my behaviour became obsessive about fitting in, doing the right thing, being the right person. You name it, I went for it in a big way. So life was pretty okay, provided I was measuring up to whatever else other people wanted. So a chronic people pleaser to an extent. So that if I felt good if other people felt good in my company, I was probably on track. But I never really did the things I wanted to do. Or did I? Well, I imagine I tried my best. And from a very adverse point in childhood, which was nobody's fault, especially not my parents' fault, all sorts of things impact on families, but my childhood was fairly horrible. I didn't know how to deal with it, and as a consequence, drink, a great supporter, my best friend, always there whether things were going right or wrong. And I learned from a good teacher how to drink. That's my dad. We didn't know he was an alcoholic. It never came into the language of our family, even though he was. And it was only in his last few weeks of life that he was sober to an extent, and he made his amends. So the irony is, September for me is all about the steps of the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Steps in Action, my video titles. Why steps in action? Because we always do the next right thing, hopefully, the next step, in whatever we do. So fellowship, the fellowship of AA, something which was never in my life for a long time. I never knew about AA. Other people had drinking problems, I didn't, because I always got up, went to work and did the right thing, or at least I thought I did. But harm done along the way to myself and other people by my absence in my own life. So if I didn't know who I was, how could people know who I was as well, except the person I portrayed? Just a part of me, not all of me. I'm not necessarily doing what I might have done had I known a different way of living. So family, friends, community, medical people kept me alive long enough to get to a place where I got that moment of clarity. And the moment of clarity was near-death experience. That was, if it can't get any worse, why not try not drinking and find out how to stop again? Because I did stop for a year or two in the past, because I thought it was a problem. And it was. I kept on going, determined that I could beat it. But self-will failed me, willpower failed me, because I was running on fighting and battling something I didn't understand. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, seemed to be a place where people understood how to be sober just for a day. And what I've learned is I don't ever represent AA in these videos. I just represent how it's working for me. Or not represent, no, I present it is working for me, one day at a time. Each day may be either good or bad, depending on life experience and life circumstances and what's going on. I cannot predict the future. Oh, I'm so glad I can't. But I have a long past which contains a lot of wisdom about how to live, and now how to live without a drink for some time. The exact number, year 8 of sobriety, 7 years sober and a bit, courtesy of many people who continually help me on a daily basis in fellowship. So the fellowship of AA is a collection of trusted servants working together, no leaders. We are trusted servants helping people with our experience, strength and hope of recovery. No leaders, no rules, no laws, no regulations to observe, and only one requirement for being in fellowship, a desire to stop drinking. So the best way for me to understand that is, or share it, is the AA preamble, which I'll show in just a moment on this little card. Always shared at the beginning of meetings, unless somebody forgets to do it. And of course we're human and we do forget. And that's part of it. Purposeful forgetting is a daily experience for us all, which is why I try and keep connected to AA every day in some way or form. And I do this either through literature, like the Daily Reflections, this book, which covers the 12 steps for a person to learn about and then put into practice and live as principles, the 12 steps of AA, which keeps us open, honest and willing to keep on learning and live in the moment of now, today. And then there are the 12 traditions, which are about unity, service and recovery. So unity, service and recovery, the 12 traditions holding the fellowship together without rules, regulations or laws, because we are trusted servants helping each other, all equal before the higher power of your understanding, or God, or simply just good conscience. So nobody has the ultimate answer. Principles aren't answers. Principles are for living and making progress. Principles are timeless. They work wherever we are and whatever we're doing. But they don't work if we don't work at them. So hence my steps in action. It's always steps in action, one day at a time. So what is AA and why does it help me, or how does it help me? This is the AA preamble. And it's September 1st, new month, new step to talk about. So the preamble, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And it's important to note that whilst AA is not allied to any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, most people are. So you'll hear about everything in AA and how sober works no matter what background we come from. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, but individuals in AA, they are involved in controversy most of their lives, and today as well, because we're part of society, so we have affiliations. And we also support different causes. But the fellowship is there for one thing. It's there for sobriety, a desire to stop drinking, and then share the message. And we all share our message in different ways, which means it's the many voices in the fellowship which make sober possible, where we hear similarities which we can then adopt and make use of in our own living. So we don't become somebody else, we actually become the people we may have wished and desired we could become, that is, without drink. So the good news is life starts to work again, but the bad news is every aspect and element, well, it's a good news thing too, every aspect and element of living continues to happen. So we are not immune from life. In fact, we're absolutely in the middle of living in the moment of now, if we make progress and can deal with our past and live in the present. So that's where we get to in AA, living in the moment of now. I think that is called spiritual living, which is not religious in its concept, spiritual living in the now. And living in the now spiritual is also associated with the fourth dimension, which people talk about, being rocketed into the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is something Einstein is responsible for defining, not making. Einstein defined the fourth dimension as time. So if spiritual living is working in time, now, the present, then we have our connection to reality, real life on life's terms. And the reason why I mention this is that the program, or the fellowship program of 12 steps, is all about emotional and spiritual well-being. Emotional are feelings, and spiritual in the moment. Feelings are feelings fitting with what is going on. And every emotion is valid, from good to bad, to difficult, to experience, to easy to experience. The more difficult emotions being the negative ones, as they are defined in our living. So hate, fear, ego. Well, ego is not an emotion. Ego is what covers up our feelings of negativity often. Rather than say, I feel bad about this, or this feels hateful. How can I love this person and hate the way they're behaving? And the answer is, you can love a person and hate their behaviour. And if you say, I love you, but when you do this it's horrible and hateful, you're not undermining the love you have for a person, you're just saying, your behaviour is really horrible right now. Which is a good way of not knocking down another person's esteem and not undermining what you're going to say next. Because it's about behaviour and not love. And most of what made us mad as hell and kept us drinking was our own self-harm behaviour. So there we go. A bit of what I was thinking about this morning. And it is a new month. Step 9 in the fellowship, which reads exactly as, I think I've got it on here as well, but I'll read it from this little card again. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So from the 12-step program we do a life story, we work out where life was working and where it wasn't working. We share that with another human being, and then we define the more defective side of our lives, the less developed or the more developed parts of us, like anger, fear, frustration, hate. We work on those and say they're not necessarily good to experience all the time or live those past experiences. Probably better to have a bit more courage, faith and confidence. And then from step 8, which I talked about in August, making a list of amends and being willing to make them, we get to the thorny subject of making those amends without doing further harm to other people. And it's not about getting, I'm really sorry, me saying I'm really sorry I did this to you, X, Y and Z, and I need to make restitution in whatever way I can, because I don't know what it can be right now, and I've got one to do today, and I don't know what the answer will be. That's okay. I need ask, how may I make an amend around this particular issue? And it does bother me sometimes, and the answer has always been forthcoming but not explicit, so maybe I need a bit more clarity without doing any harm. God, these steps, you can't get around them, you have to do them. Anyway, for today the AA Daily Reflection is very much about willingness to grow, and this is what it says. willingness to grow. If more gifts are to be received, and the gift of recovery, or gifts in recovery, living real life, our awakening has to go on, and this is talking about a spiritual awakening. So the spiritual element for me, and this is not for AA doesn't have an opinion on this, people do. The people in AA have differing or similar opinions, but spiritual awakening for me is being able to live in the moment, reality as much as possible, being here in the moment. So this is what it says in the AA Day of Reflection. Sobriety fills the painful hole in the soul that my alcoholism created, and for me it also filled it in. I filled myself full of alcohol, so I couldn't feel the emptiness. Often I felt so physically well. Not often I felt, but often I feel so physically well that I believe my work is done. In other words, sitting on our laurels. However, joy is not just the absence of pain, it is the gift of continued spiritual awakening. And my spiritual awakening has always been of the educational variety, living life, bumps and all. Joy comes from ongoing and active study, as well as the application of the principles of recovery in my everyday life, and from sharing that experience with others. My higher power presents many opportunities for deeper spiritual awakening. In other words, clarity in the moment of now. I mean only to bring into my recovery the willingness to grow. Today I am ready to grow. And I guess that's true, because every experience, be it good or bad, provides us with scarring, if you like, or agitation, and sometimes joyous agitation and sometimes horrible agitation. One agitation I had this morning when I was doing an injection for insulin, being type 1 diabetic. Another joy in recovery from a virus, late onset type 1 diabetes, not expected but managed because, well, not managed very well sometimes, but I'm still alive today, which is a good sign. Something I got in recovery, and I didn't blame my higher power for it. I don't blame anyone, it's just the luck of the draw. I got an infection, a virus, and type 1 diabetes. The good news is I was alive long enough in sobriety to be able to deal with what was going on, even though sometimes I'm not very good at it. But I'm making progress daily, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes two steps forward and one step back. That's how life is. We're not on a progressive forward shunt into nirvana or utopia. We're human, and we've got to keep on making progress. But progress is happening anyway, no matter what we do. It's whether we consciously move towards the positive, if we can, and deal with negative as well, if we can. So me, today, the fourth dimension has been on my mind, because people often say I've been rocketed into the fourth dimension. So, some thoughts this morning. Spiritual living and the fourth dimension, time, is about utilising previous life experience to find out why the past contributes to positive or negative events today. And I call that a real thorough life story being done, good and bad. So, no longer living in the past, we are rocketed into the present moment. It can be a rude awakening, and always a spiritual awakening, if we are grounded in truth, love and wisdom today. So, truth, love and wisdom, I'm full of opinions based on my life history. So, opinions and belief. I still need to get to the truth of what's going on, because I may only see it my way, when in fact there are many ways to see the truth of now. So it can be a rude awakening, and more often spiritually enhanced by the input of other people for me. So being able to love and be loved back, and gain wisdom from others, truth, love and wisdom, my higher power. And that's not being scientific or undermining God. Gandhi summed it up for me: God is truth, love and wisdom. Well, he said God is truth, which is based on love and wisdom. wisdom learned from others mainly. However would we make our own opinion or understanding of truth unless we had the input from others? And in my history there was a lot of bad input, which now makes it easier to see the good of life. So September, daily reflections, which I've been talking about, all about step and tradition 9. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And of course the promises, which are part of step 9. As we make restitution, we open up the gates of reality, new living, new outlook. Still the same emotions to deal with, and still the same life experiences, but a new way of looking outwards, rather than being closed down, full of self-opinion and self-harm probably. Now we look outwards to not harming others, and trying to be ourselves, whatever that might become. By the end of today, I will know more about me. May not know consciously more about me, but I'll know more about what's going on, and hopefully more forgiving of everything that goes on in life, because we are human. Previous years, well, I just want to mention Tradition 9 as it reads on here. AA as such ought never be organised, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. So when I say we are all trusted servants within AA, no one opinion greater than the other, we still have to work out some sort of organisation so that we have the fellowship in unity, service and recovery. So we have ways of utilising our own opinion about fellowship and sharing about it in the meetings of AA, all equal, then into a part of the organised structure which allows other parts of the fellowship to be in unity through connection, communication, and sharing literature and sharing outlook and opinion. But ultimately, we are all the same, so anything that we may employ or deploy to make things possible is not a controlling force. It is always trusted servants. Trusted servants is you and me. If you say you're in, you're in. But it doesn't mean you're going to get your own way when it comes to how we organise the fellowship. It needs to be understood as a group, and then we pass that on to, I suppose, geographical and then, I guess, global understandings of how the fellowship works. So the fellowship doesn't change that much because the principles are timeless. How we apply ourselves with those principles is a personal choice, always. So no AA can tell another AA what to do, which is a really important part, because any rule which is then put on another person by another person will probably send them off in a huff at worst, and well, at best actually, and at worst it may get them back out there drinking. So no AA can tell another AA what to do, but we understand the boundaries of how we work together in fellowship, in unity through group democracy. And it is anarchic because it's based on agreement at some stage, and it can change quite fundamentally quite quickly. So the thing in AA, it doesn't stay the same, and people complain all the time sometimes that AA is not what it used to be, and of course it can't be, because every day it changes. And when people say this meeting isn't what it used to be, if you go to a meeting regularly, you'll find it's absolutely true. Friends, connections, if you haven't been for a while, they all change. You think to yourself, my God, it's all different. But then when you sit down and listen to the similarities and the sharing that we do, it's not that different. It's just that it's changed, and maybe we're not so happy that it's changed, or it's changed in a way that we don't like. So in London I'm very lucky, I have 700 meetings to choose from, and if by some strange coincidence none of those meetings were helping me, I go to a different fellowship, because they all have 12 steps and 12 traditions. The steps and the traditions are timeless. Human beings can screw them up, including me. So how I see the steps and traditions is just my opinion. Remember, it's how they work for you, always, which counts. Anyway, previous years, I'm going on a bit today, but it is a new month, new step. Between 2008 and 2010 these were. Step 9 is about clearing the wreckage of the past, what our old attitudes and behaviour did to ourselves and others, and making the amends we can. And sometimes I say the word restitution. Back then, when I was an active alcoholic, I hurt myself and others. Step 9 recognises old ways, making amends and committing to new ways of living, the promises. So being rocketed into the fourth dimension for me was actually being rocketed into this present moment. Time, as Einstein said, is the fourth dimension, or defined it as the fourth dimension. Some people define the fifth dimension as spiritual, but you have to go through the fourth dimension to get to the fifth dimension, maybe, and maybe they're somewhat connected, like all dimensions in living. But these are sometimes based on scientific theory, empiricism, reality, which can be measured, or it may be spiritual, the quality of feeling about life. So I have been rocketed into the quality and feeling of life in the moment of now. So I don't have any problem with that. I like thinking and feeling. I like to put it the other way, actually. I have feelings and then my thinking starts. My feelings influence what I do and how I think, not the other way around. And it would be very remiss of me to say I can think myself well. If I feel okay, I'm fairly well, emotionally, sometimes, and physically, sometimes, but it can go the other way. So, recovery is not about waiting for some magic, it is about putting in action to change our attitudes and behaviour. We need learn our feelings anew in recovery long enough to know what they are, because I didn't know what feelings were really, except the first ones which happened in recovery, which were anger, hatefulness towards myself, and then it must have been everybody else's fault, but I realised I couldn't blame anyone else for my drinking habits, no matter how they started. Somehow I kept on going to be addicted, while I had no power to stop on my own. Having found out what our feelings are, we need then take action, or stinking thinking can make us as mad as hell all over again. And this can happen in any day, at any time. If we judge the situation as we did when we were in our malady, in the negative side of living, we can poke the finger at other people rather than offer. If we can't do anything about it, why are we judging it sometimes? If we can do nothing about it, or we can do something about it and do nothing, that's another question. And it all comes down to that serenity prayer, or exhortation, or meditation, an understanding of what we can and cannot do, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I know what I can do today. I can change my attitude and behaviour. I can change my attitude and behaviour. I can't change your attitude and behaviour. I can't make you do it. So I'm powerless over people, places and things. I may be able to influence the situation by my attitude and behaviour, which is I'm taking a stand for this because it's the right thing to do. I feel it's the right thing to do. And you can reject it, but I can't force it on you. Can and cannot do. And the wisdom to know the difference is in that serenity prayer or meditation. And I'm very happy with it because it saves my bacon. When I think I know better than you, it shuts me up and says, listen, I've got an opinion about this, can you listen to me? Rather than, listen, I'm telling you. It doesn't work. Anyway, the serenity prayer helps me. Maybe it can help you. So it's to God or good conscience as it works for you. So whether you're using your good conscience in this as a reflection or meditation, or as a simple prayer to God, which for me is truth, love and wisdom, the universe, nature, providence, whatever you like it to be. I can't define what's out there because it's bigger than me, but I get all my wisdom from out there, and it makes me feel more informed. doesn't help me make choices. I still have to do that on my own, and still have to take responsibility for anything and everything that I have done and do. Hence, I pray for forgiveness for myself and other people, all in part of this. Because if I can be forgiving of who I am and how I got to where I am today, however can I not be forgiving of you? And then we need to start again. So, to God, or in good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me in the moment and just for today.